All right, you guys, I just want to go over Bitcoin. I updated the chart a bit and just have some ideas to share with you. This week, the S&P will likely just move sideways because everybody's waiting for next week, basically. But what you can see here on Bitcoin is that, and why I'm doing this video is, if we zoom in, and this is on a daily time frame, you see it's on the daily, what you can see is that this price, what's something to watch for, is when price starts to get squeezed. So Bitcoin on a daily was moving in this 5% range, and you see these bigger kind of candles here, right? You see that? And you see how now the candles are getting more compressed. You see how this is like, this range is becoming more compressed. That's important, okay? So that's something to pay attention to. When the price starts to squeeze like that, now we're in this range for 1, 2, 3 days of about 2%. That's where you can see a sudden move, right? And so it's something to pay attention to. I usually don't. I trade based on news catalyst, right? And that's when the big moves happen. A lot of people just trade off of these patterns, and in a bull market where there's a lot of interest, that can be good. But what you need to understand is moving into the recession, as you're going to need these catalysts in order to cause big movement on Bitcoin. With that being said, there are certain patterns which will hold true, and it's just certain fundamentals that, regardless of a catalyst, can cause price action to change suddenly. And one of those is when price action starts to squeeze in this pattern. You see how this is how this is like a triangle. You see, it's kind of like a triangle, and how that price is squeezing. Well, what can happen is the price at that point, it can either touch up here and come crashing down, or the opposite can happen. So this is not like a video that's trying to predict things one way or the other. It's just the recognition of a pattern. And I don't talk a lot about patterns because everybody else does, and that's fine when you're in a bull market and you can trade breakouts and you can just use patterns. But I'm way ahead of the game with these videos. I'm always ahead of the game. That's just part of my life. I shorted Carnival Cruise Lines back in February of 2020, and before anyone was wearing a face mask, I had already bought. Before anyone had even known what the coronavirus was in America, I had already shorted. I was way ahead of it. So I'm way ahead of it with this too. And so you're going to need, in the recession, you're going to need to trade news catalysts, understand what's going on with the news. That's how it's going to work for Bitcoin. But we can't ignore certain fundamentals with the price action, and every once in a while I'll see something like that and want to just bring it to your attention. With that being said, it's the beginning of the week. I would wait 24, 48 hours, because also with this, it doesn't mean anything necessarily. The S&P can just continue sideways, and this can just kind of stay stuck. It doesn't have to, but this is showing you something. This pattern is showing you that buyers and sellers are, the price people are willing to buy and sell at is really squeezing, right? And so when it squeezes, it's either going to break one way or the other, right? And so anyway, it's just something to consider. It's a pattern that I see playing out. My bias right now would be to the upside, as odd as that seems, because moving into next week, with the Fed news, the S&P, and everybody over in the real traditional market, they're not putting cards on the table. So if we see a move right now, this is just this is conjecture and speculation, right? Which is fine, but just consider what I'm saying. It's, you know, it is truly just an idea. What we have right now is a lot of people who would be piling into these shorts right here. And so if the S&P moves sideways, just follow the logic. Imagine the casino, that's the exchanges. They've got all these shorts piled up here, and all they need to do is squeeze to the upside, okay? And then these guys get liquidated. And that's easy for them to do on low volume. And that's why when you see a breakout on low volume, it's a squeeze. That's another video for another day. So if that does happen, first, you want to set an alert here. You want to set an alert here. And then my entries. So the ETF box was up here. And now I'm adding to the ETF here. Okay. And I'm willing to take that risk. If we come into the pivot line next week, that changes things a little bit. We'll see. If we stay below the pivot line, then this is more further downside. If you start to break above it, then you just adjust, you know, what you're doing with the medium short term. You might just be caught holding a position that's down. Does that make sense? So if this breaks to the upside and we add here to the ETF position and it breaks higher, it might break up to the pivot line and come back down. But if you're holding this ETF position and it breaks higher, you might be caught in a play for a period of time. So you might just consider that that's money on the table that you can't use for other things, because you might have to wait a week, 2, 3 weeks for it to come back down if you do in fact get a bounce out of that. Anyway, this is what's setting up. You got a potential move coming in. That to me would be exchanges. It wouldn't be a news catalyst. It wouldn't be organic. But the exchanges could also just dump this shit right here too. You know, my tendency is to say the people are onto them. They're trying to short here. The shorts pile up and then bang, they liquidate it. And then, see, that's what we're doing. We're shorting the short squeeze. Again, only dude that called this 100%. I have not yet to see somebody. That was the next big short, and I did a video called Short the Short Squeeze. There's a lot of people that were piled up on the shorts here, and they all got liquidated. And you can see, like, I was within $11. And so with this thing here, you can short. So the shorts all piled up, they liquidate, pump, and you could see that's where you want to hit your ETF play, right around there. All right, guys, peace.